Asha's hope faded as the Jem'Hadar mocked her pleas for help, letting her know she would rot as their captive. No aliens would dare attempt a rescue. Every alien race refused to save the kidnapped Jem'Hadar diplomat's daughter. The brutish warrior race considered asking for help a sign of weakness. But with millions of lives at stake if war broke out, one group stepped up, the killer humans known for doing the impossible. In the Grand Galactic Council chamber, Commander Russell Brown stared down a dozen alien representatives. The spindly grey counselor explained the dire situation. Asha was abducted by Jem'Hadar rogues. They demand we free their leader, a vicious war criminal, or she dies. Your skills give us the best chance of saving her quietly. Brown frowned, his battle scars twisting. Why me? The Jem'Hadar should clean up their own mess. The counselor sagged. Their tactics are too blunt and violent. It would provoke a war. No other race will take this on. Xylons can't stomach a fight, and sending Kree would enrage the Jem'Hadar. So you need crazy humans for your suicide mission? Brown smirked. Typical. But if we're the galaxy's only hope, I'll need my own team. No questions asked. The counselor nodded solemnly. Brown rose and strode out, mind racing. Millions of lives hinged on his success. One wrong move and the galaxy would burn. But despite the impossible odds, Brown would die before he abandoned an innocent to those alien scum. The rogues had no clue what hell the humans would rain down on them for preying on the weak. Time to remind the galaxy why you never fuck with mankind. Brown made the calls as soon as he hit the tarmac. His first pick was Jax, a close-quarters combat specialist who was surgeon with a blade. Jax had a thing for knives. The bigger, the better. Next on the list was Mika. She was a stealth expert, able to slip into any facility like a ghost. As an infiltrator, her skills were unmatched. Rounding out the team, Brown tapped Zane, a field medic who could patch up any wound. But Zane wasn't just a healer. The man had a gift for crafting explosives out of damn near anything. The team assembled in the hangar bay, their black stealth ship prepped and ready. As they boarded and stowed their gear, Brown gathered them around a hollow table. Listen up. The Jem'Hadar are holding Asha in a fortress on Krellin. Place is locked up tight with top-notch security and a small army of pissed-off warriors. But that's where our intel says she is. Jax flipped a knife in his hand, a feral grin on his face. A knife, a gun, and a shit-ton of angry aliens between me and the target? Hell yeah, sounds like my kind of party. When do we get this show on the road? Brown punched a few commands into the table, bringing up a 3D map of the fortress and surrounding jungle. We're going to set down in the trees about 5 clicks out and hoof it in quiet and quick, sticking to the shadows. Mika, you're on point. I need you to do what you do best. Get in there unseen, shut down their eyes and ears, and clear us a path to the girl. Mika simply nodded. Her face betrayed no hint of emotion. The woman was an enigma. Jax, you're with me. We'll be the ones going in to get Asha out. Expect close contact and plenty of resistance. Zane, you're on rear security and exit prep. Make sure we've got medical if we need it, and a big enough bang to cover our escape if shit hits the fan. Zane chuckled. Hey, if things get hairy, just point me to their armory. I'll whip up something to make the roaches scatter. Brown leaned onto the table, his expression hard as steel. Let me make this clear. Asha comes first. This ain't about racking up a body count. We find her, we get the hell out of Dodge. I don't care if you've got to get creative, but we're not leaving without that girl. And we sure as shit ain't gonna be the ones to start an intergalactic war. You reading me? The team responded in unison, loud and clear. As the ship rocketed through the void towards Krellin, Brown felt a cold weight in his gut. Every instinct, honed by countless missions, screamed at him that this one was different. The danger, the pressure, the sheer scale of the consequences if they failed. It was beyond anything they'd faced before. But that was the thing about humans. They had a knack for spitting in the face of impossible odds. And this team, they weren't just humans. They were the meanest, toughest, craziest bastards humanity had to offer. If anyone could pull this off, it was them. The black ship settled onto the surface of Krellin, with only the faintest whisper of displaced air. its cloaking device making it effectively invisible to any prying eyes. Brown and his team emerged from the ship like ghosts, their dark armor blending seamlessly with the shadows cast by the towering trees of the dense jungle that surrounded the Jem'Hadar compound. They moved through the undergrowth with a silent, predatory grace, the humid air heavy with the chirps and buzzes of strange alien insects. Brown took point, his eyes constantly scanning the gloom for any sign of danger, his finger resting lightly on the trigger of his pulse rifle. As they neared the fortress, Mika peeled off from the group, vanishing into the shadows like a wraith. Her job was to disable the perimeter sensors, clearing the way for the rest of the team to infiltrate the compound undetected. Brown, Jax, and Zane waited in tense silence, their muscles coiled and ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. The seconds ticked by with agonizing slowness, each one feeling like an eternity. Finally, their comms crackled to life, Micah's voice coming through in a hushed whisper. "Perimeter breached. You're clear to proceed." Brown nodded to Jax and Zane, and they moved forward as one, hugging the walls of the compound as they made their way towards a side entrance. Zane knelt before the door, his fingers flying over the alien locking mechanism with a deft precision. In a matter of seconds the lock hissed open, and the trio slipped inside, their weapons at the ready. The interior of the fortress was a labyrinth of dimly lit corridors and cavernous chambers, the air thick with the stench of sweat and alien musk. Brown took the lead, navigating the maze with the aid of the schematics displayed on his HUD. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a pair of Jem'Hadar guards. Before the aliens could even raise their weapons, Jax was upon them, his knives flashing in the dim light. The guards crumpled to the ground, their throats slashed and their lifeblood pooling on the floor. The team pressed on, delving deeper into the heart of the compound. As they approached a large central chamber, they heard the sound of raised voices and the clatter of weapons being readied. Brown peered around the corner, his eyes widening at the sight that greeted him. A group of at least a dozen Jem'Hadar warriors were gathered around the door to the chamber, their weapons trained on the entrance. "That must be where they're holding Asha," Brown muttered, his brow furrowing. "But there's too many of them for a frontal assault." Jax grinned, a feral light dancing in his eyes. "Leave that to me, boss. I'll create a diversion while you and Doc grab the girl." Before Brown could protest, Jax was gone, slipping away into the shadows like a ghost. Moments later, an explosion rocked the compound, the walls shuddering and dust raining down from the ceiling. Shouts and the sounds of weapons fire filled the air, and Brown knew that Jax had made his move. Without hesitation, Brown and Zane charged forward, breaching the door to the central chamber with a burst of gunfire. Inside, they found Asha, her face bruised and her eyes wide with fear, but alive. Zane scooped the girl up in his arms, and the trio made a break for it, fighting their way back through the compound as alarms blared, and Jem'Hadar warriors swarmed like angry hornets. Jax rejoined them as they neared the exit, his knives dripping with alien blood. They burst out of the compound and into the jungle, the humid air filling their lungs as they raced towards their hidden ship. Asha clung to Zane's back, her thin arms wrapped tight around his neck. But as they neared the extraction point, a new threat emerged from the trees. A hulking Jem'Hadar mech, its armored plating glinting in the dappled sunlight, stepped out from the tree line, its weapons already trained on the humans. Brown shoved Zane behind a towering tree trunk, Asha still clinging to the medic's back. "Take cover." Pulse rounds slammed into the ground where they'd just been standing, spraying dirt and shattered bark. Brown rolled, came up firing at the mech's gleaming optical sensors. The shots deflected off the machine's armored head with a shower of sparks. Jax dove behind a boulder, his knives useless against the mech's reinforced chassis. He unslung his rifle, unleashing a barrage at the mech's joints, trying to find a weak point. The rounds pinged off harmlessly. Mika shimmered into view beside Zane, her cloaking field flickering. She tapped furiously at her wrist computer, trying to hack the mech's systems and shut it down remotely. "Damn it! Its firewalls are too strong." Brown gritted his teeth, ducking as a hail of cannon fire ripped through the foliage above his head. They couldn't pierce the mech's defenses, and it was only a matter of time before it wore them down. They needed to get Asha out of here. He keyed his comm. "Ghost, get Asha to the ship. Ripper, Doc, cover them. I'll draw its fire." "Like hell you will," Jack snarled over the link. "Commander, we're not leaving you," Zane protested. "That's an order. Move." Brown burst from cover, rifle blazing as he charged straight at the mech. The machine swiveled to track him, its cannons roaring to life. Zane handed Asha off to Mika, who slung the girl over her shoulder. "Hang on tight, kid." Mika sprinted for the ship, zigzagging between the trees as pulse rounds stitched the ground at her heels. Jax and Zane laid down covering fire, their shots sparking off the mech's armored hide. Brown wove between the trunks, staying just ahead of the mech's devastating fire. He could feel the heat of the rounds sizzling past, smell the ozone tang of ionized air. His lungs burned, his muscles screamed, but he pushed on, drawing the machine further from his team. But he was only human, and the mech was tireless. It was gaining, its shots coming closer with every step. Brown knew he couldn't outrun it forever. Just as the mech locked on, missiles streaked from the sky, slamming into its torso in a fiery cascade. The machine staggered, its armor buckling. Brown risked a glance up and saw their ship swoop low, Mika at the controls, the boarding ramp open. Jax and Zane leaped aboard, beckoning frantically. With a final burst of speed, Brown raced for the ramp, pulse rounds nipping at his heels. He leaped, caught Jax's outstretched hand, the cyborg's grip like iron as he hauled Brown aboard. Mika gunned the engines, and the ship shot skyward, the mech's fire chasing them as they punched through the atmosphere and into the star-strewn void. In the cargo bay, Brown slumped against the wall, every fiber of his being aching with exhaustion. But they'd done it. Against all odds, they'd rescued Asha and struck a blow against the Jem'Hadar. The girl, still held securely in Zane's arms, looked up at them with wonder. "You saved me," she said softly. "You saved us all." Brown found the strength for a weary grin. "That's what we do, kid. That's what humans do." They'd won today, but Brown knew their fight was far from over. The Galactic Council would be in an uproar over this brazen operation, and the Jem'Hadar would be howling for blood. But for now, in this moment, they were victorious. They were alive, and they were together, a band of human warriors who'd stared down the worst the galaxy could throw at them and come out swinging. They were the tip of the spear, the first and last line of defense. They were the galaxy's best hope. The triumphant return to the Galactic Council chamber was nothing like Brown expected. As he and his team strode into the grand hall, Asha held protectively between them. They were met not with cheers and gratitude, but with a wall of stony faces and accusing eyes. A deathly hush fell over the gathered representatives as footage of the battle on Krellin played out on the enormous view screens. The destruction, the fiery explosions, the brutal efficiency with which Brown's team had carved through the Jem'Hadar forces, it was all laid bare. "What is the meaning of this?" the Jem'Hadar ambassador roared, leaping to his feet. "This was supposed to be a rescue mission, not a declaration of war." Other councillors joined the chorus of outrage, their voices rising in a cacophony of anger and fear. They pointed at the humans, their expressions twisted with disgust and terror. "You've upset the balance of power. Your actions could lead us into a galactic war. The humans are too dangerous. They must be held accountable." Brown stood firm in the face of their accusations, his eyes hard and unapologetic. But before he could speak, Asha stepped forward, her small form trembling, but her voice strong. "Stop! These humans saved my life when no one else would. They risked everything to bring me home. They are heroes, not criminals." For a moment the chamber fell silent. Then the Jem'Hadar ambassador sneered, his voice dripping with venom. "The child speaks from emotion, not reason. The fact remains that the humans' actions were reckless and cannot go unpunished." He turned to face the council, his eyes glinting with malice. I move that the humans be banished from council space, effective immediately. Their violent ways have no place in our civilized galaxy." A murmur rippled through the crowd, and then one by one the councillors nodded their assent. The motion passed with a resounding majority. Brown clenched his jaw, a muscle ticking in his cheek, but he said nothing, merely inclining his head in a terse nod of acceptance. As they turned to leave, Asha caught Brown's arm, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never meant for this to happen." Brown knelt, meeting her gaze with a gentle smile. "Don't be sorry, kid. We knew what we were getting into, and we'd do it again in a heartbeat. That's the job." He rose, squaring his shoulders as he faced his team. "Let's go, we've got a ship to catch." But as they neared the chamber doors, a scrawny figure scurried towards them, his robes flapping. It was a council messenger, his face pinched with worry. "Wait, the council has one final request." Brown paused, eyebrow raised. The messenger swallowed hard, his hands twisting in his sleeves. "There's a situation. A rogue AI has seized control of a fleet of warships. It's threatening to attack council worlds. The representatives, they want you to handle it." A bitter laugh escaped Brown's lips. "So that's their game. Kick us out, but not before sending us on a suicide mission to clean up their mess." He looked to his team, the unspoken question hanging in the air. Jax shrugged, a wry grin on his face. "Ah, what the hell? I wasn't planning on living forever anyway." Mika and Zane nodded, their expressions grim but determined. Brown turned back to the messenger, his decision made. "Tell the council we'll do it, not for them, but for the innocents caught in the crossfire. Because that's what we do." As they boarded their ship, preparing to embark on what could very well be their final mission, Brown couldn't help but reflect on the twisted irony of it all. They were humanity's best and brightest, the ones who ran towards danger when everyone else ran away. They were the shield standing between the galaxy and chaos. And yet, to the Council, to the aliens they protected, they were a threat. Monsters to be feared and reviled, a necessary evil at best. But that was the burden they bore, the price of being human in a galaxy that feared their strength. Brown settled into the pilot's seat, his hands moving over the controls with practiced ease. Behind him, his team readied their gear, checking weapons and strapping on armor. They were the killer humans, the galaxy's last line of defense, and they would keep fighting, keep protecting until their last breath. Even if it meant flying into the jaws of oblivion itself. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.